Well, right now members and senators are enjoying afternoon tea with the Governor-General after she spoke to Parliament just a short time ago, giving the opening address outlining the government's agenda for the term ahead. No surprises, going through many of the priorities outlined by the government during the election campaign. I spoke earlier to the Liberals' Shadow Finance Minister, Andrew Robb, about day one of the new Parliament, how things are shaping up and in particular who is going to get this job of Deputy Speaker. Andrew Robb, thank you for joining us. First up, the first day of Parliament, the Speaker's been elected, but we still don't have a Deputy Speaker yet. Will the Coalition be putting forward Bruce Scott?
Well, we really will make a decision once we see how the government responds in half an hour or so. They sought to play tricks with the Speaker himself, and you could see that this morning he was I think had been somewhat offended by the actions of his own side. He got the strong support of the Coalition, but they've spent weeks looking for somebody else.
He did say, one day the true story of the past few weeks might come out. What do you think he was indicating?
It was a sort of loaded response, I think. Well, I suppose clearly he feels his family and himself have been put through the ringer by his own side, yet clearly he has got the confidence of the Parliament, so certainly the Coalition side. And
but the Coalition really only backed him because you didn't want to lose one of your own number, and you wanted to cost Labor one of their number.
No, but Labor had 750,000 less votes than the Coalition, won less seats, yet secured government with the support of the independents. If they want government, they have to supply the Speaker. That's the tradition. Right?
And do you think they should also now supply the Deputy Speaker, or will that come from the Coalition?
Well, I think what happens traditionally should continue to apply. What normally happens is that names are invited for a Deputy Speaker. Both sides put up a candidate, and usually, because the government's got the numbers, albeit by one, they win the Deputy Speaker role. And then there is an assistant Deputy Speaker, if you like, who normally then comes from the Coalition or the opposition side.
The Coalition signed an agreement with the government and the independents that there'd be a Speaker from one party and a Deputy Speaker from the other party.
Well, there was a pairing arrangement that we had signed a document for on the understanding that the proposition that had been put to us for that arrangement was constitutional. Now, it's clearly not constitutional. It raises great doubts. If we went into that arrangement, all sorts of legislation is passed. It's then quite challengeable.
So even without that pairing arrangement, you could still put up a deputy from the Coalition, couldn't you?
Well, we will, and we're ready to put somebody up potentially, but we will see how they respond in the House. They talk about a new paradigm.
So if they put up a Labor candidate, you won't put anyone up?
Well, we'll see. We want to keep our actions. We want to keep our actions sort of private until we see how the government reacts. They talk about a new paradigm, they talk about cooperation, consultation and all the rest. All they've done so far is play tricks. We see that even with the agreement they struck with the independents, that key elements of that have now been excluded in terms of what will be put before the House tomorrow. So
we're going to explore some of that a bit later on. Let's turn to some portfolio matters. Access Economics has raised concerns that the budget could slide back into deficit in 2013-2014 rather than continuing in surplus as Treasury and the government expect. Do you share that pessimism from Access?
Look, we've been saying from day one that this budget was a house of cards. The assumptions on which year 3 and 4 is built, the result of that, are clearly heroic and false and are optimistic in the extreme. No one supports the numbers except Treasury and the government. In our view, all along, there would be a major supply response to the demand out of China. No matter how well we're doing in the next 2 years, there will be a major supply response around the world. There are thousands of projects coming on stream in Russia, Eastern Europe, South America, Mongolia, you name it. And in a lot of cases, just the infrastructure that's being built to get all those resources into China. So we will see a big supply response. It'll put downward pressure on commodities, and then the whole budget strategy falls apart.
If the problem is that there's going to be too much supply of mineral resources here and around the world, and that's going to push down prices and affect the profits in the budget, bottom line, is there an argument for trying to address that supply issue, trying to limit supply through, for example, a mining tax?
No. Look, we've got an opportunity because of the demand from China, and we've got much better infrastructure, ports and rail and all the rest of it, to service that demand in the next couple of years. We need to make the most out of that opportunity, and we need to use that money to pay down the debt. This is the problem. The government is not acknowledging that this economy is vulnerable in the next, 3 or 4 or 5 years. There's a great vulnerability if the commodity prices collapse, or even if they come back significantly. We are deeply exposed. Everything that should be done now, if you thought you were going to lose your job in 12 months' time, you would be seeking to pay off the mortgage as best you could. Get your balance, your savings in the right order, not spend much money, right? Get yourself prudent financial management of your own concerns. No different with a country, and yet we've got the government still with this reckless spending. Tens of billions of dollars they're still spending from the stimulus program. This is an irresponsible government who don't know how to manage money, and all they're trying to do is now tax things. Carbon tax, mining tax. They want to get money by taxing.
Just finally on that carbon tax issue, the government, of course, has now set up this, or is setting up the multi-party committee to look at how to put a price on carbon. Tony Crook, the Nationals MP, has today suggested that he might consider joining that committee as well. Why doesn't the coalition at least be a part of the process here to get the outcome it wants?
Because membership of the committee requires you to sign up to a belief that a carbon price is the only answer.
But there's plenty in the coalition who think that's right.
No, well, that's not true. Our policy, which we took to the election with overwhelming support, and bear in mind that it had a 66-33 vote in the Liberal Party room when we.
That's what I mean. You've got 33 there who believe that a price on carbon is the way to go. Why can't they take part in this committee?
Well, we are a party that has got a strong policy position, which is actually consistent with a lot of the big countries, industrialised countries around the world, and with China and India. They're all taking direct action. Tell me where in all those big countries which are producing lots of CO2, where there is a price on carbon that's being established. None of those countries. We should not get ahead of the world. Nothing has changed since Copenhagen. Nothing has changed since this issue was considered by the Parliament at the start of this year, when it was soundly beaten. This issue needs to be considered in a thoroughly comprehensive manner, and not just take up the position of the government. We have put forward a market mechanism. We have put forward a means of delivering the targets, the same targets as the government, but not getting too far ahead of the world, not exporting jobs, not exporting emissions. That's what will happen if they go headlong into a price on carbon.
Andrew Robb, lots happening today. We better let you get back to it. Thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks, Dave.
And we will be talking to Access